Austin.
I'm Quintin.
This is XMAS Movies.
The podcast where we talk about Christmas classics that aren't exactly classics. Today we're joined by our dear friend, Finn. So yeah, Finn is our dear friend that we've known for many, many years.
Since about 8 to be exact.
Is it about 8?
I
think 7th grade. 7th grade is like the easiest.
7 years.
Almost 7 years, yeah.
Yes.
Almost 7.
Yeah.
Austin is a film major. Me and Finn are both acting majors.
Yes.
I need to include Finn in more of my shit.
Yes, you do. You do.
Although I do live 9 hours away.
That is
that's
true.
It's
Now
more
you live
difficult
in that.
than
It is
yeah.
now
living
more
Quintin.
difficult than ever.
Yeah.
Over the summer.
And I would consider myself a Christmas film fanatic, and
I'm just more of a film enthusiast.
yeah. Where do
say.
you put yourself on the scale of like film fan
Casual
to
Tarantino.
Christmas fan?
Casual Tarantino
Like,
viewer.
are you a fan of Christmas movies?
I am a fan of Christmas movies, actually. One of my favorites is A Christmas Story. I used to
Actually?
watch it all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh shit, that's something we never ever talked about on this podcast. What's your Christmas Story?
Oh.
Is that your favorite Christmas movie?
I'd say excluding the one this episode is about to talk about.
That's
Yes.
fair. What's your favorite Christmas movie?
Excluding the ones we've talked about on this
Yes,
list.
I think we have to exclude the ones we talk about on this list.
Favorite traditional Christmas movie.
Yeah. Shit.
Or non-traditional.
I have a soft spot for the original Home Alone. I like the first Home Alone a lot.
I'm cheating, but it's the only movie I watch It's the only piece of media I watch consistently every year, aside from Elf. It's Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, the episode of Community.
The Community episode. Of
I
course.
talk about it all the time. It's the only thing I watch consistently every single year.
Yeah,
That's like thematically Christmas, though. So that works.
Yeah.
The one I watch the most every
It's a
year.
short film, actually.
Is-
It's not a
of
TV
course.
episode. It's a short film.
The one I watch the most consistently is Elf.
Same.
And I've just like grown like more and more disenfranchised to it. It's really cute. It's really endearing, but God, Will Ferrell can be annoying sometimes.
Yeah, I have never seen it, and
Really?
believe it or not, I have no desire to. So
It's like a fine movie.
It evokes classic Christmas movies, but it came out in 2006, which is why
2003.
2003? I thought it was 2006.
No, what?
What?
Oh, we're the same age. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually
You're
older.
technically a little older. I
I'm
bet that
technically
came out.
older than Elf by a few
It would
months.
be weird if Elf didn't come out around Christmas. It'd be weird
Well,
as fuck.
most of the movies
Probably in like November. That's my guess.
Most of the movies on this list came out in the summertime,
Yeah.
actually.
But like, if Elf came
that's-
out any
that's
other time
interesting.
other than Christmas, that would be
November 7th, 2003.
You were
Okay,
right, November.
that's
Okay.
reasonable. That is a reasonable time for a Christmas movie to come out.
So yeah, Finn, we tried to get him on an earlier episode, but he slept for 14 hours and did not answer any of our numerous calls.
Yep. I've also slept through the majority of today as well. My sleep
Yes.
schedule is pretty messed up
You
right
slept
now.
through the movie.
Yes.
Lucky
I've
you,
seen it before.
You've seen Die Hard
Yeah,
before.
we're talking about Die Hard. I'm the only one who hadn't seen it
I
prior
don't.
to
The movies
today.
that you've seen combined with the movies that you haven't seen still is like, it's just weird. I don't know why it's.
Shut up, film major.
It's intriguing to me.
I mean, I still haven't seen Inglourious Bastards. So,
I feel like you
Unrelated.
talked about that.
yeah, you've
though.
talked about the movie.
yeah, but I haven't seen it.
Huh. Okay.
I feel like you talk a lot about it.
Oh, because I want to see it. I haven't found the time to.
Okay.
Okay.
But I've seen like every other Tarantino movie.
Oh,
so
God.
it's it's kind of
Yeah.
weird that it's the only one I haven't seen.
Yeah. Die Hard.
Yes.
First,
Yes.
okay. Let's hear from the person that hasn't seen it. What are your opinions of this movie, Quintin?
Well, okay. So actually, I've seen up until about the 1 hour mark of this movie because I was hanging out with my friend Will in my dorm's lounge, and he just put it on, and we started watching it. And he kept on being like, "Man, Argyle's my guy." And I was like, "Okay, William Kreutz, fucking," because he was like really fucking obsessed with Argyle.
That's a
Argyle's the limousine driver, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Argyle's the limo
Okay.
driver.
Like, and I like Argyle, but
Argyle's funny.
he's funny, but Will was going a little crazy.
Interesting.
A little crazy, a little stupid.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I had seen up till that point. I was really so
The hour mark is like kind of everybody's already taken hostage at that point.
yeah.
It's kind of when everything's getting set in motion. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
when the action. It's like right after the action kind of starts for the first time.
Yeah.
When
like-
John starts taking out some of the terrorists. That's about all I'd seen. So like up until that point, I kind of knew what to expect. After that, like I know the plot of this movie.
Yeah,
Like, I
it's
think
a
everyone knows the plot.
pretty
of the
simple
movie.
plot.
Yeah,
Right.
but I enjoyed it. Like it's just it's a solid movie. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's just the one thing that this movie has really going for it. It is an extremely effective action movie, and I believe it is like it is like the perfect. There is pre-Die Hard movies, and then there are post-Die Hard movies. That's not really like actual timeline, but that is like kind of like the mindset you have to be in, and if you're analyzing action movies throughout the time period. Pre-Die Hard is like the classic 80s action movies like Predator, like Terminator, and like just like those kinds of movies. Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, big action hero kind of movies where they're just like living army like that.
Yeah.
And then there's the post Die Hard era where action heroes tend to be normal people, or they're like, if they are are trained people, they tend to be like not as like, they don't tend to be like the big buff like kind of like action hero.
They're vulnerable.
Yeah, they're more vulnerable, which
Yeah,
is like Die Hard is like the movie that kind of started that, and it's
Which is weird to me because they're like one of the franchises in the pre-Die Hard kind of era is the Rambo franchise, and that's like that falls into that kind of stereotype of like the living army. But like First Blood, both the book and the movie are about like a Vietnam vet and like him dealing with that and being very vulnerable, and like then it slowly
becomes more of an action hero.
Yeah, so it seems like people tried for it and like it did well, but then people didn't want it anymore, and then Die Hard came out, and then it kind of went back a little bit.
Yeah.
I do kind of think the most compelling part of the movie is that he's so disadvantaged in like every situation.
I agree.
I don't know. It helps create like a lot of the tension.
Yeah.
And that just makes it very interesting because there weren't a lot of movies like that before Die Hard in terms of action movies.
Yeah, I can't see any of Schwarzenegger's characters like running around barefoot and like picking glass out of their feet, like,
right,
and crying.
Right, yeah.
That was the other thing. Like John McClane literally like cries in this movie. I can't see any character prior to this point doing that and like being that emotionally vulnerable.
Well, I mean, like, I mean, yeah, that's 100% fair, but also like he's going through like some honestly like terrible shit where like what's great is the movie is acknowledging that it's terrible shit, and it's like you don't just shrug that off where you would in like other action movies. But like the whole glass thing, there's a lot of repelling in this movie. Like he repels down the elevator shaft, he repels off of the roof of the building, and like he ends up hanging a guy, which I don't know, it's weird.
Well, I mean it's just like when I was talking about tension a second ago, I was kind of talking about the scene where he repels with his like MP5 down that air duct. I don't know. I don't know why there's so much repelling in the movie, but it definitely creates a lot of tension just like on its own because you're like suspended over nothing, just like hanging by a rope.
Literal suspense.
Literal suspense, yeah. And it works very well for a movie that takes place in a skyscraper.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the movie?
I love this movie a lot. Like I said, it's like kind of like the perfect like transitional action movie. Like it still has like all of like the hallmarks of your 80s action movie: big explosions, crazy action scenes, bottomless ammo clips, and like the most out there scenarios, but it's all being kind of grounded within the main character of John McClane, and I really like that about this movie. Also, like Hans Gruber is amazing. All of the every character in this movie is like, if not developed, at least extremely interesting. Like in some like way, they're very fun to watch. Shit, I don't know. What's the cop's name?
The character or the actor?
The character's name.
Al.
Sergeant
Al something.
Yeah, like it's kind of like this two like parallel storylines with like John McClane and like Sergeant Al and like the police force is like these two kind of parallel storylines, and I like the police storyline for a lot because it's just people continuously getting replaced by people who are less effective at their job to the point where you get like two FBI agents who I do remember names. Their names are Johnson and Johnson, which is kind of funny. It's kind of pointing out, it's like, oh yeah, these guys are dicks. But like, it's fun to see that kind of shit get played out, where more people are getting more and more qualified, and like, if they would actually listen to the person who was on the ground from the beginning, then 90% of the shit that happened in this movie would not have happened. And it's like, it makes for a very intriguing and very interesting story.
Well, a lot of the movies like that, like when he calls, or first actually when he pulls the fire alarm, and there's like the ambulances and the fire trucks coming, and then they just turn around, and then again when he calls, he doesn't actually call 911, but when he uses the radio to try and contact, like the police, and they just keep telling him like, it's a, he can't use the radio signal, which I found that was the only part of the movie actually that bothered me a little bit, was just them blowing him off so casually, because here's this dude on a emergency radio frequency saying like there's terrorists in one of the city's largest skyscrapers.
And like, I guess it's like on a CB. It's on like a CB radio as well. It's like,
yeah. Not a lot of people would know how to like use one of these and contact them. Mm-hmm. And he's like begging for help, saying there's terrorists after him and they're gonna like blow up this building and like rob the vault. And this woman's just standing here like, I'm sorry, sir, you can't use this radio frequency. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of ridiculous. It was. That scene. But I don't know, the rest of the movie, I do just think it was interesting seeing all these people kind of just not listen. Yeah. And then, as a result,
it's a good exercise in dramatic irony.
Yes.
It's a very good exercise.
Yes, very good exercise.
Another thing about this movie that I really love is how quotable it is. There are so many extremely quotable lines that are just like lead to this movie being like kind of like has like this instant classic kind of like feel to it, which is something that I really enjoy with a lot of movies. It's just like, it's like, even if you like don't fully remember everything that happened in the movie, you still remember certain moments of the movie, and certain things stick with you because of certain reactions, certain lines of dialogue, how things are delivered and how things are framed. And it's just like everything is very just like it's just good. I mean, it's just like very well put out.
I think one of the things that really cemented it for me as a Christmas movie, because it's really, otherwise not a Christmas movie, but when he gets his submachine gun and he sends the dead body down in the elevator with the what does it say? I have a machine gun. Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Yes. No, that was, that's a really great,
Alan Rickman is a gem.
Memorable line. Memorable moment.
I think the thing that the reason a lot of people don't think of this as a Christmas movie, though, is I think the more iconic parts of this movie are kind of divorced from Christmas.
Like, for sure.
Yeah. Also, something random, separate from that, is that I feel like everyone quotes like a lot of his like one-liners in like a tone that is very that has a lot of bravado and is like really like badass.
Yeah,
but, like
motherfucker.
Yeah,
so
like,
he doesn't actually say it like
he says it like someone trying to kind of cope with the situation, like, because he's like constantly freaking out.
Like he's like he uses like jokes to kind of like a normal person, like he uses jokes as a coping mechanism, and the whole like yippee-ki-yay motherfucker like kind of like got
it's
that
so quiet when he says that.
So
everyone like fucking screams it, and he says it so quietly.
The reason that people do that is because in later movies it is characterized as a badass line. And like in like the second movie, it's him like he says it and then he chucks a match onto a fire, killing a bad guy in a giant explosion. Like it's like after this movie came out, it got characterized as a badass line because people remembered it like that,
right?
And they just misremembered it, and so like, oh, this is a cool line, that this is a catchphrase, we can use this, and like and then they used it, It's weird.
What is your guys' favorite censoring of that line? Because I've heard a lot. That's just a random thing. I've heard a lot of censoring because this movie was on like TV for a long time. It would air on TV, and they would censor it in weird ways.
The one that I remember is Yippee-Ki-Yay, Mr. Falcon, or something like that. It was something stupid like that.
I'm a big fan of Yippee-Kayak Melon Farmers.
That was an actual censored line.
I think so.
Yippee-Kayak Melon Farmers.
Why would you censor Kaye? Like Yippee-Ki-Yay?
I don't know. I feel like that was the. I've heard someone say that was how it was censored. But I can't confirm that because that wasn't a lot.
Kayak. That's.
I don't know. But
why would you censor Kaye? That's not even.
It's like, okay, but going back to the Christmassy thing, a really weird and kind of random thing I noticed at the very end is like all of that paper's raining down, and and then they start playing
Let It Snow.
Let It Snow.
Oh yeah.
I think they were. I think this movie is trying to have a Christmas aesthetic.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah, it definitely like the people who made it leaned pretty heavily into that direction. Where does it take place again?
L.A.
So it actually does take place in L.A. where the tower is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
because that's
I was just gonna say
Fox Tower. Is that what it is?
Yeah. That's
yeah.
Actually really quick thing. That's why they used that tower
because it's a Fox Studios movie.
Because the studio owned the tower.
They
didn't use it for the interiors, obviously. Those were all sound stages, but.
Yeah.
For the exterior, they used that because I think the skyscraper they wanted to get wouldn't let them use it.
I would guess that it was like what's the bank? What's the
Citibank
what's
tower?
The equivalent? I only know it by its GTA, the Maze Bank building. I'm guessing
in
because like
Los
that's
Angeles,
like the giant like helipad
right,
on
exactly.
Top. It seems like it would work as like whatever building the Maze Bank is based on.
I think that might have been the building they wanted.
That would make sense.
But anyways, back to it being in LA. I think the fact that it's in Los Angeles, Los Angeles doesn't get snow.
Yeah.
It really doesn't get that cold at all. So
I think like they were like I saw Will Wheaton posting a story that it got down to like 40 and that was cold.
Right. I think it fitted.
I remember when you first got here.
Yeah,
when you first got here, it was 40 degrees out, and I went outside in a hoodie, and you fucking yelled at me.
No, yeah.
You
Vince
thought I was
California.
Crazy.
It took me a while to get used to the cold, but anyways, I think because it's in LA, if it had taken place somewhere else in the United States, like Chicago or New York, they could have had it been snowing outside, which would have kind of really added to the Christmas aesthetic, and I think people would like remember it more as like, oh yeah, it's a Christmas movie, despite it being this ridiculous action movie. But I think because it's in LA, and there's no snow, people don't tend to always remember it as a Christmas movie because it's really only those small moments throughout the movie that you see. This is Christmas.
It's a lot of dialogue reminders. A lot of what it is like people just like humming or whistling a Christmas tune, or like John McClane asking if Argyle has any Christmas music before the lyrics start. I don't know what group is it, but it is like a remixed like Deck the Halls, I think, right? I don't know. But like a lot of just like it's just like a lot of little things like that, and like the Christmas party, like and there's like Christmas trees and shit like that. It's like in the setting and it's all in the background, and like it's constantly
that's
referred to.
That's what I really like about it. It's subtle, but ultimately it's like realistic because during Christmas time, we're not like living in a Christmas movie just because it's December. These classic Christmas movies, everyone's lives, at least like during the movie, kind of just like everything revolves around Christmas. Like it's kind of like the topic of every situation in those movies, and like all the sets and areas that all the scenes. There's just very in-your-face reminders that it's Christmas time, right? But in Die Hard, it's a lot more realistic, in my opinion, because during Christmas time, it's not actually our lives aren't like these Christmas movies. It's a lot more akin to in Die Hard, where it's just kind of this subtle thing in the background that, you know, it's like existing, but it's not like the topic of our lives. And so I think in that way, Die Hard is a pretty realistic Christmas movie, aside from the action.
Yeah. You know what I like about this, what this feels like a lot, and I kind of only really thought of this after watching it this time. This feels a lot. Okay, so like the setup of this movie is John McClane is going to see his wife, who is kind of like on the ropes because she got an opportunity to work with the Nakatomi Corporation, and they're just kind of like separated and like they're very kind of like estranged and whatnot.
Right.
And like it, and he's going out from New York to LA, which is a fucking long ass plane ride, and
about 6 hours.
Yeah, actually going that way, it's probably longer than that. Because jet streams go the other way.
That's right.
But like it seems like the setup for like it seems like prior to John McClane getting on like the airplane and going to LA, it seems like the setup to a Christmas movie. Had they started the movie like a week prior of like him like being in New York, just kind of dealing with regular cop shit and basically like following like him like kind of thinking about like, oh shit, what the fuck have I done? And then he goes to LA. It's like if you set this movie a week prior, it would have been a conventional Christmas story. But now that you've said it when it is, it's basically just this Christmas scenario that gets hijacked by a fucking bomb threat.
No, exactly.
It's I mean, hijack's a very good word for it, because they you know they do like literally kind of hijack this building, but also in a figurative sense, it's like this pretty, you know,
it's a very Christmassy scenario.
It's a pretty standard setup for like a Christmas movie between like the conflict between John and his wife, and like he hasn't like seen his kids in a long time. He's coming in for Christmas.
Yeah. It seems like a very
standard setup.
Standard Christmas movie setup, and then it gets hijacked by like a ton of bank robbers.
Yeah, there's very like mundane situation, and then, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's a weird thing to think about it like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how much that actually makes it more, if it makes it more or less of a Christmas movie because of that.
I don't know.
I would say it makes it more of a Christmas movie. I don't know. I think thinking of it like that, like these terrorists hijacked this Christmas movie, makes it even more of a Christmas movie, because it's not like they're not really the topic of the movie entirely.
It's just kind of this. It's all about John McClane trying to get like to be with his wife again, kind of like, and that's kind of like the. I mean, like obviously it's about. Ultimately, that's like that's the resolution of the story.
That's his
him
motivation.
Getting back together with his wife. But yeah, it's like it all just kind of gets hijacked because he has to deal with this terrorist.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the only part of this movie that doesn't align itself like with how we've kind of defined a Christmas movie on like in previous episodes of this is like thematically. I think like the way he like his arc kind of resolves is he gets back with his wife. He kind of resolves some of his emotional and personal conflicts, which is something that happens in a lot of Christmas movies, but it doesn't, for the most part, like that.
Those parts aren't necessarily unique to Christmas movies.
Yeah, exactly. But
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say,
you're our guest. You gotta.
I think what's funny, if you want to talk about what makes it like thematically a Christmas movie, is, take for example National Lampoon's the National Lampoon's Christmas movie, Christmas Vacation, I think it's called.
Yes.
And that movie is basically about having to deal with everything that can go wrong on, you know, with Christmas, and in a comedic way, right? It's a comedy, but I feel like you could almost apply that to Die Hard. Like, it's this guy trying to celebrate Christmas, and he's having to deal with all these people trying to ruin it, all these things going wrong with Christmas.
No, you're entirely right. I'm realizing something. I think the more and more I've thought about this, I think the reason a lot of people don't consider this a Christmas movie is because it doesn't seem like a Christmas they've had. I think in terms of like, for me watching it, and in terms of like, I talked with like my mom about this and she was like, that's not a Christmas movie. And I think part of it, like a small part of it, is an aesthetic thing, because I think a Christmas in LA is pretty different from Christmas in
for sure.
the rest of the US. So just how it looks is different. But also, I think the reason people can relate to Christmas Vacation is it's like everything that can go wrong in a way that everyone can relate to.
Right.
Whereas this, when you watch Die Hard, it doesn't feel like a Christmas movie because like I don't think anyone watches and like that's something that can happen at Christmas.
Right. It's almost like metaphorical.
Yeah.
In terms of things going wrong with Christmas.
It's not. It is a Christmas movie, but just people don't, I think, maybe think it is because that's not their Christmas, but that doesn't make it not a Christmas movie. It's just a Christmas that no one out there is experiencing.
Right. Which makes sense.
And nobody should experience. It has a lot of like those like kind of things. Like we talk about like you said, you mentioned earlier in this, movies are about the one time something happens. We talked about that with Home Alone. Too.
That's what my acting teacher keeps on saying. He's like,
movies are about
in stories, it's all about the one time something improbable happens.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it.
I mean, I don't 100% agree with that kind of sentiment because a lot of stories are about really mundane things.
Well, it's a generalization.
It's generalization,
but it's pretty good.
This follows a lot of. I like to think that a lot of movies are about everything that can go wrong. It's Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it's about persevering through that. And that is prevalent in a lot of Christmas movies, especially Home Alone, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Mainly Christmas comedies, where it's basically just trying to set up a ton of weird shit. This feels like that, but in the guise of an action movie. Like, it's just like these like weird offhanded things where like the person at the beginning of the movie tells him like, take off your shoes, it's a great way to wind down, and he does that, and then he walks on glass later in the movie when he doesn't have shoes. It's like it's like the little things like that make it feel more like a Christmas movie, because I've seen Home Alone, I've seen National Lampoon. A lot of those kinds of movies are structured in a very similar way. And in like 80s action movies are a lot like comedy movies, but they're more like slapstick comedy movies, and that's kind of like how that's how I've heard a lot of people talk about just action movies in general, is like they are live action slapstick, but like that's because in like that's a way to think about it. It's just like,
and I think something interesting about this movie is that it starts the trend. I think action movies still are kind of like that in general, but I think this movie started a trend where it started to move away from that and started to focus, at least for brief moments, on like the human aspect of that. Because I think I don't know, but is it fair to say that as the movies go on, John McClane becomes less humanized? Like, have you guys seen any other Die Hard?
Oh, for sure. I've seen the other Die Hard movies, and they're much
more action hero heavy.
Yes, they're
Bruce Willis becomes
more
an action star.
Exactly. They're more traditional action movies. But yeah, they're much. The later movies are much more unrealistic. They're more ridiculous. They're less interesting for his character. Because it's kind of just him, killing all these bad guys, and it's not like the first movie where like oh shit, what's gonna happen? Like, is he actually gonna do this? Like, he's vastly outnumbered, disadvantaged. He's got glass in his feet.
And I think that is
not like that.
Yeah, I think that's something that, I mean, I guess it's not inherently exclusive to Christmas, but I think that's a theme that, like, the triumph of the human will is something that makes it feel Christmassy. Like, he's against the odds, like, to the point where he like breaks down. But he continues to like fight and persevere to like reunite with his family, which feels, even if it is exaggerated in this film, something that could be applied to the holiday season.
I don't know if this is something that is like more particular to just like kind of like how old franchises worked, like not like Marvel or something like that, because the way franchises function are a lot different to how they used to function. But like franchises, at least the more traditional ones, like Die Hard, like Predator, like Terminator, like all of those movies, where it basically just like, as the movies go on, it keeps getting progressively more and more improbable, because it's like, well, I've already seen something like this. And I feel like that's why people don't like those kinds of sequels. Like, there's 5 Home Alone sequels. The Home Alone...
5?
Yes.
Different actors.
Yeah, different actors.
No. There's Home Alone 2,
5.
Lost in New York. Home Alone 3. Home Sweet Home Alone.
There was a TV movie that came out in like 2011.
Sorry, there were 2 movies that came out.
There are 4 Home Alone sequels. Sorry.
They're technically not sequels, though. Actually, it might have just been one, but it's
3,
basically like a recreation of the first movie. I think they're connected somehow.
Home Alone 3 is a real bad movie.
Oh my god, we're watching that movie next year.
Is that the one with the different actor?
It has.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one I've seen.
No, yeah.
It's not very good at all.
There's 4. No, but yeah, there's like 4 terrorists, and like they have.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking.
They put a super chip in his toy race car.
Basically,
I
it's
remember
like,
this. Yes.
They try it's kind of a lot of it has to do with like the setup of most of these movies. It's like, well, okay, how are you going to put this character in a similar situation, and how are you going to make it believable? And as you get as you like kind of run out of those kinds of situations, then the movie itself becomes more and more improbable.
Yeah, I think Die Hard as a movie is much better if you just look at it alone.
Yeah.
Like as a standalone movie. If you ignore its sequels and just look at the first movie, because I really think the sequels take away from the first movie being interesting, in my opinion, because they kind of just turn it into this generic action movie where there's not this question of like, if the good guy's actually gonna win, and it's kind of just like, oh, of course he's gonna win. He's the main character. He's no longer really in danger.
Another thing with the nature of
in the
sequels.
audience's eyes.
Yeah,
because with a sequel, there's expectations. I guess that's a big thing.
Right. That too.
And I think you're right. I think also if people were to look at this movie on its own without the bias they've developed or just the preconceived notions of this franchise they've developed as more movies have come out, I think they would think of this as more of a Christmas movie. I can see why people don't think it is, but I don't think it's the most Christmassy movie.
No,
but I think it is.
This is not going above Tokyo Godfathers.
No, and I think I understand. And even at the end of the day, getting a bit more philosophical, Christmas movies are just kind of whatever you want them to be, because you can find in almost any movie something that you can equate with the holiday season. And even then, at the end of the day, the only thing that makes a Christmas movie is just a movie you watch during the Christmas season, because that's all traditions are. It's whatever you...
Yeah.
Like, my big Christmas tradition is I watch this Community episode, Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, every year with as many people as I possibly can. And that episode's all about, like, Christmas is about the traditions you make, and it's about the meaning that you find. Like, it doesn't have a preset meaning. So I think, basically, to go back to Die Hard, if you want this to be a Christmas movie, you can say it's a Christmas movie, and no one can take that away from you. And in fact, that discussion is itself becoming a Christmas tradition for a lot of people. But like,
that's a weird aspect of it. I don't think very few movies get debated on whether or not they're Christmas movies as much as Die Hard. And I think because that debate exists, it is a Christmas movie, because this discourse is a thing, and it always happens around the holidays, and people are constantly talking about this movie and will be talking about this movie for decades to come. Probably this movie will eventually become since that discussion has become just such like ingrained in our like kind of pop culture as like a whole, and I feel like this movie is a Christmas movie because of that. It's like because people watch this and because people discuss it as a Christmas movie, then it is one.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's some movies, I'm trying to think of a good example, but I don't know, like American Psycho, for example. Bad example, but it's not a Christmas movie because no one is ever debating on whether or not it's a Christmas movie because it's not a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near a Christmas movie. It doesn't even take place during Christmas, I don't think.
People my mom tried to tell me that Ghostbusters is a Christmas movie a couple days ago, the first one.
Does it take place during Christmas?
I didn't think it did, but now she's...
I guess we need to watch.
But that's a good example of a movie that is a Christmas movie because there's a debate around whether or not it's a Christmas movie. You don't have debates around these movies that have nothing to do with Christmas, like No Country for Old Men or Kill Bill, because
just thinking of movies that you've watched recently.
yes, specifically the good ones. But you don't have debates around whether or not they're Christmas movies because they're very much not Christmas movies.
I agree with you guys, but I think that I don't think you can make that an absolute. I think that we can say that we consider these Christmas movies, and anyone who has that debate can say that, but anyone, in my opinion, who says otherwise is kind of equally right, because, like, your own traditions are only going to have meaning to you, and, like, your own reading of a movie is the only thing that is going to matter to your own head. That's, like, the important thing.
Right. It's entirely subjective.
Yeah, like, I've met people who watch The Wizard of Oz every Christmas. I have also met people who, like, only watch, like universally considered Christmas classics, and then, like, fucking we watched Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah.
Like, I mean, well, as soon as one person, though, says a movie is a Christmas movie, that starts the debate of whether or not it's a Christmas movie, therefore making it a Christmas movie.
And I'm glad that discussion continues, because I think it's a fun discussion to have.
It is.
But I think at the end of the day, like, whatever is your own personal tradition, no one can take that away from you, which I think is the true meaning of this podcast, is that you can say whatever you want as a Christmas movie, and there's gonna be some fucker out there who tells me Jingle All the Way is a good movie. Have you seen Jingle All the Way?
I've not.
Don't
see it.
I really hate that movie.
Yes, watch it. I want you to watch that movie.
I might go out of my way to watch it.
Watch it.
God damn it.
Watch the movie.
Fuck off.
Do it.
Fuck off.
I'll watch it, and then if
Go
I
watch
enjoy
it.
I enjoy it.
Watch
Fair
it.
enough.
If I don't, I don't.
God damn it, you're right. I dug myself in a hole there. But yeah, that's
Watch it drunk.
I think that's the end of Xmas movies. That's it. That's
Those are actually the only Christmas movies. The
Yes.
ones this podcast has covered.
These are the only ones.
only these ones.
Only these.
If you watch anything else,
You watch Elf at Christmas? Fuck you. Joking.
Austin's right. I have to arrest my family now because they're gonna watch Elf next. They're gonna watch Elf. Actually, when this episode comes out, they'll be probably watching Elf.
If you watch A Christmas Story, you're getting court-martialed.
Back.
So just watch out.
Yeah. How does the ranking stand? Where do we want to put this?
I think we should not put this on the list because I think
Has it transcended this debate?
I think that the debate has rendered our list meaningless because I think everyone is. I know that this whole podcast is about our opinions about movies, but I think everyone's opinions, at least in terms of their own traditions and Christmas films, are their own. And I think,
of course.
I think if I put Die Hard, I think if we try to put Die Hard somewhere on this list and try to end that, and that is us trying to end this debate, and I think that is not something that we should do because I think it's the debate is a tradition for a lot of people now.
It should go at the top of the list, though.
I think Tokyo Godfather. I don't know. It's
shit. We gotta watch Tokyo Godfathers.
No, yeah, you gotta watch Tokyo Godfathers is a genuinely good movie that you should watch.
Better than Die Hard.
I'd argue yes.
Two very different movies.
Two very different movies, but yes,
they're both a better movie. God, I'm so glad we watched a bunch of really bad movies.
Oh my god, I'm so glad we watched these two movies last.
Yeah.
Let's retrospective. Let's go through what.
No. This is it. We're done. We gotta cut this off before it goes too long. Because if anyone listens to this on Christmas, they will already have turned it off by this point.
Or it'll be in the background while they're opening presents or something.
Yeah, the family will listen to this.
Yeah,
all together.
Grandma. I know you're listening, Grandma.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, Finn.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Joining with us in this Christmas tradition.
Yeah.
I'm Austin.
I'm Quintin.
I'm Finn.
Thank you so much for listening. Happy holidays, everyone.
Maybe see you next year. Who knows? We get picked up for season 2. See you next year.
Okay.